Hello, and welcome back to the Steel Woman podcast. I am your host, Osley, and today I'm going to be talking about how to deal with family and friends post-deconstruction. The relationships in your life that feel a little strained now that you have left behind religion and these people are still religious. In the last episode, I sort of finished talking about my deconstruction journey. I think technically I'm probably still deconstructing ideas and really unpacking religious trauma and childhood. And trauma is such a word, but unpacking my childhood further and trying to heal and working with my therapist through all of that. But I feel very confident in where I am right now with my belief, my lack of belief. It feels good. It feels honest. As far as my beliefs or lack of belief goes, I feel like I'm in a really good place and I'm curious and want to learn more. So I would say season 1 of my deconstruction journey has come to a close, and maybe I'm opening a new chapter in my process of processing. How redundant. That's nice. I made a TikTok yesterday talking a little bit about how to deal with family post-construction, and my most honest answer, unfortunately, is I don't know, right? I have a few ideas, and I have things that I'm currently trying, principles that I am experimenting with, but I don't know if there is one right way to handle it. And I think experiences and situations vary so greatly from person to person that getting advice from a professional, a therapist, a counselor, whatever, is going to be your best bet when navigating this tricky time. Relationships can be so complex, especially if you have people who, there were already problems before this, and now you're tacking this religious element or lack of religion element on top of it. It could get really, really complicated. So, of course, massive disclaimer here, I am not a certified counselor, psychologist, nothing like that. All of these things that I'm going to be saying are just my ideas, my own philosophies and principles that I'm experimenting with currently, and they may change in the future, and I will try to keep you updated on how they change, because I do think that it is helpful to hear what other people are trying, what has worked for other people. These sorts of conversations do serve a purpose, but yes, at the end of the day, I think counseling will be worth the investment. Unfortunately, it's not available for everyone, but I do think if and when it becomes available to you, I would highly recommend it. So my entire family and extended family, minus maybe a few individuals, are Christian, and there's different denominations. I can't sit here and speak for all of their views on theology, and because I really don't know. All I know is my immediate family, what they raised me on. But even right now, I couldn't tell you if all of them are on the same page about everything in the Bible. I really don't know. And as far as arguments or conversations about theology, what a certain passage of the Bible means, I can see the importance of that. I can see how it might be interesting. I do find it interesting still, historical context and translations, things like that. But for me, it's just kind of I don't believe any of this stuff is true. Okay, when I say any of it, I believe the Bible's historical fiction. I don't believe it's divinely inspired. I don't believe that it's important for me to dedicate my life to. So when it comes down to arguing what did this passage mean? What did Jesus say when he said that? For me, it's it's an interesting thought experiment, but it's not really I don't care that much. Maybe at some point in my life I will get to a place where it does matter to me again, but there are thousands of denominations of Christianity, and I think just the mere fact that you could probably put 5 Christians from different denominations in a room, and they would have so much to argue about and wouldn't agree on even key things. And maybe they would agree on some key things, maybe they wouldn't. That alone is enough to just make me go, like, why would I join in the conversation anymore? I just don't think that it's worthwhile. Not to get derailed, because I feel like I'm already going off on a tangent, so let's stay focused. There are people in my family who I do respect and think highly of, and they are Christian, right? I don't think that everyone in my family is a bad person. I actually don't think anyone in my family is a bad person. I think they're good people. And so it's really important to me, as I am sharing these things, sharing my deconstruction journey and sharing little insights and clips into things that were said or done to me, that I protect their reputation as much as I can, while still allowing myself to remove the muzzle and talk about the harm that I believe religion does to people. That has been a tricky tightrope to walk, because when you're criticizing somebody's religion, when you're criticizing somebody's beliefs, when I was a Christian, for example, I wrapped my identity up in being a Christian. And so if anyone criticized Jesus or said that it was like, oh, I think all that's BS, it felt like a personal attack. I felt like I was being persecuted almost. So I understand that this sort of content may be upsetting and offensive to Christians. And that's why at the end of the day, I really can't recommend any of my family members to watch this unless they are willing to examine their beliefs from an objective place. And not just my family members, but other theists too. Like, I can't sit here and say, you need to listen to what I have to say. I would hope that one day we live in a world where people are open-minded enough to listen to an opposing viewpoint. For many years I didn't. I only sought out Christian perspectives, and I think that harmed me. So that's why I would make the argument that perhaps listening to what I have to say could be helpful in your journey. But at the end of the day, I think everyone deserves to draw boundaries around what they want to listen to, whose opinions they think matter. Who am I, right? Like, I don't have a PhD. I'm not super scholarly. Some people might just literally not care what I have to say, and I can't really argue with that. That is your choice. The reason that I feel inspired to share my story, though, is because I have benefited so much from hearing people's story, even when they don't have a PhD, even when they aren't super scholarly. I love listening to people's experiences, deconstructing, and just experiences in general. It has opened my mind and my heart up to so many different walks of life that I wouldn't have been exposed to if I hadn't made the choice to go out and listen. All I can say is that if you are a person who wants to understand other perspectives, and you are interested in the stories of people who are deconstructing, and you are open to maybe even being challenged or having your mind changed and maybe being offended, then you might find some value from what I have to say. But at the end of the day, it is your choice. And if at any moment during these episodes you don't want to listen, you don't have to. And I promise you, I respect that. So now I want to get into the principles that I'm currently trying to live by when dealing with family members and former acquaintances who are still religious. As I was editing this podcast video, I realized that I missed a really important aspect of dealing with family post-deconstruction, and that is the conversation where they find out or you have to choose to let them know. And the reason I think I forgot this is because I've only had 2 conversations where I have broken the news, so to speak. The majority of the people in my life have found out through this podcast and through my TikToks, and have either reached out to me or are processing silently on their own. The principles I'm sharing in this video that I am currently using or following to deal with family post-deconstruction are going to make a whole lot more sense if I cover this aspect of dealing with family in that initial finding out period. I remember going back and forth in my head a lot before I started making these videos, before I, kind of announced it to the world, whether or not I was even going to tell my family. I remember thinking for a short period of time, maybe I'll just lie. Maybe I will say that I'm a Christian, at least until my parents die, so that they don't have to be worried about me, so they don't even have to know or think that their child is going to burn in hell for all of eternity. It was also my opinion at this time that, and it still is, that it's really nobody's business. Nobody needs to know what your religious beliefs are. That can be private. I believe you can take that to the grave if you want. You don't need to be sharing that stuff if it's not comfortable to you. But then I got to a point where I started thinking, if I can't be my most authentic self with the people who are closest to me in my life, am I going to have fulfilling, intimate, close relationships? The answer to me was no. If I can't show up as my authentic self and share this really big part of me, then I am not going to feel loved for who I truly am. I'm going to be projecting a lie and people pleasing and not having real intimacy. I didn't want to feel like I had to live a lie, but I was really conflicted about this, and I hadn't made a decision about whether or not or when I was going to share that I was no longer a Christian with a certain family member. And it actually came out on accident in conversation. It was really, it popped out. Anyways, it came out. And here's why I think that conversation went better than what I was expecting, and take from this what you will. Once it was out that I'm no longer a Christian, that statement was out between us, I saw this person processing, and I just told them, I was like, I know this is a lot, and I don't think we should go into it right now. I think you just knowing that is probably enough. Take your time to process it, and we can talk about it at another time. I wasn't even planning on telling you today. And I actually think this worked out really well because, of course, it's a very emotional thing to hear that someone you love has left your religion. So I know this person was feeling a lot of emotions. And instead of me putting pressure on this person to show up in a way that I needed them to in that moment, I chose to give them a lot of grace and space and say, like, look, I can't. It was like a mixture of setting a boundary, but also knowing like this person is probably going to need time before they can show up in a way that is going to be helpful to me. I don't know if that makes sense. I also remember saying, I don't need criticism right now. I have thought through this. This is where I am. I don't need criticism. We can discuss it later. And I had to, I think, say it a few times just to make sure that we were on the same page. And thankfully this person was respectful, and the conversation ended with me sharing just a little bit, but not much at all. Just me saying, I've thought a lot about this, and I even said, I'm sorry that this is going to be hard for you. I'm sorry that this is hurting you, but there's truly nothing I can do right now to change my beliefs. I don't want to hurt you. I also told this person that I loved them and that I, valued them, and this person was able to thank me for trusting them enough to share this piece of information. So it was a beautiful, beautiful moment, and I do think that the main reason it was able to come back to that positive note was because we didn't go head on into debate and criticism and attacks. So yeah, that conversation, I was very appreciative of this person and how they held space for me in finding out. Another person, I actually volunteered this information because I felt comfortable enough with them to do that, and I wanted to make myself vulnerable and just let them know what was going on in my life, and we ended up having a good conversation about it. And it was super easy because this person is very kind, very open-minded and chill. If I could give anyone any advice about about whether or not to share with your Christian family members or friends that you aren't a Christian anymore, I would say, number one, do not put pressure on yourself. Just don't. I don't think that you have to open up this part of your life. I don't think that you have to be vulnerable. I don't think they need to know. And even if they ask you directly, like, why aren't you going to church? Or are you going to church? Or are you a Christian? You can just say, I don't feel comfortable talking about this right now, but I appreciate the concern. Like, I don't think there has to be a conversation ever like that. This is, you get to decide what you feel comfortable with. And like I mentioned in this episode before, I think a therapist will help with that a lot. But yeah, I just hope you know that you don't have to make some big announcement. You don't have to come out and let people know. You can keep that to yourself, or you can share, and you can choose to be experimental and see what feels right. You also don't have to share everything just because you start sharing something. You could say, I'm no longer a Christian and I am not open to talking about it. Whatever, you don't have to then go into all of the details of your deconstruction. This is your journey. So now I'm going to get into principles and resume the episode that I filmed yesterday. And just remember, these principles are the ones that I'm currently trying to live by as someone who knows that everyone in her life now knows. So just keep that in mind. I haven't gone around and told every person that they've just found out because the internet, Okay, that's it. The first principle I'm trying to live by is don't bring it up, let them bring it up. The last thing I want to do is shove my lack of belief and my criticism of Christianity down people's throats. And some of you might be thinking like, well, you have an entire channel dedicated to doing that. And the way I see it, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think this is fair. I make videos and I put them out on the internet. They are available for anyone to go listen to, but you don't have to. You could block me. You could just not click on the video. You could start the video and then decide that you don't want to finish the video. Even though I'm putting myself out there, I'm not directly attacking any one person, or not attacking, but I'm not sending these videos to my family members. I'm not sending them to my friends. I'm not sending articles to my friends and family saying like, hey, have you read this article about how Christianity is harming people? For me, it's really about consent. Consenting to a conversation, consenting to watching a video. In my mind, when I'm on the internet and I'm scrolling or I'm looking for a video to watch on YouTube, when I click on a video, I am consenting to a potentially triggering and offensive or emotionally harmful video. I appreciate when there's disclaimers at the beginning of videos, especially when they're about diet or exercise. I appreciate little warnings or disclaimers ahead of time, and maybe I should be better about giving disclaimers for my episodes as well. But the way I see it is when I click on a video and I hold a phone in front of my face, I can click off that video at any time. No one is forcing me to watch it. I am choosing to enter into that conversation. So yes, I'm posting my opinions, I'm posting my perspectives, but I think the important distinction for me is that I'm not forcing anyone to watch these videos or interact with them. And the option to block or ignore is always there. So in relationships with family, what I'm currently trying to do is ask for consent before challenging their beliefs, before criticizing their beliefs. So within this idea, I don't text my family members links to my videos. I shared my TikTok with one family member after they told me that they were listening to my content And I said, oh, I also have this if you're interested. But the only reason I did that is because they reached out to me and they told me that they were listening to my content, and I just wanted to make sure that they would have a full picture. But that's it. And I also cushioned it with, but no pressure to listen to any of it. And again, this was after the person broached the subject with me. I didn't bring it up. So I don't share my links to my videos. I don't share links to videos of debates. I don't send them articles. I don't send them arguments. I literally leave people alone. And because my thing is, like, if they want my critique, they'll ask. If they want my opinion, if they want advice, if they want my recommendations, they will either seek out my content or they will ask me directly. And until they do, I'm just kind of doing my own thing and not worried about it. It's very important to me that my family and my friends who I choose to have relationships with at this point in my life don't feel like I'm attacking them or criticizing them as an individual for having faith. I do plenty of criticizing of Christianity as a belief system in my content, and I know that's uncomfortable for people, so I would never do that or push that in a one-on-one conversation with a person where there's pressure and they can't just immediately leave that conversation. And I think it goes without saying is that's kind of how I want to be treated too. So I'm trying to think, like, I'm trying to be consistent and fair in the way I treat people and what I'm expecting in return. My second principle that I'm trying to operate under right now is respecting my own feelings. Sometimes of the month, you know what I mean, ladies? You're way more emotional. I am. Like, right before my period, I get really sad and like just kind of dark and gloomy. And having conversations with family members during that time probably would not be a good idea. And so, yeah, different seasons, whether it be about my menstrual cycle or, I don't know, just taking it day by day. Some days I'm not up for it. If I see a name pop up on my phone and I just get this wave of like, oh, I can't do it, I don't make myself. But if I feel like, oh no, I'm up for this and I can keep it short and I can keep it quick and like light-hearted, then I do it. I experienced so much guilt and shame and pressure while I was in religion that I'm really trying to be careful to not let those toxic feelings follow me and influence my decisions to a point where I feel like I have to pick up the phone and talk to people even when I don't want to, that I have to hang out with people even though I don't want to. I'm really trying to respect my own feelings and just trust that my relationships, the relationships that are supposed to survive will, and the ones that aren't won't, and that's okay. That's honestly, that's a risk that I have to take. If respecting my own feelings and drawing boundaries and asking for space is going to cause someone to walk out of my life, then I think I have to let them at this point, and I'm okay with that. I'm also trying to remind myself that I don't have to commit to one approach. Just because I don't want to talk about something with a certain person on a certain day does not mean that that is going to be the case in a year from now or even a week from now. I can choose to be inconsistent. And for a long time in my life, I felt really frustrated with myself because I felt like I was inconsistent. Some days I felt like this, some days I didn't feel like this. Some days I liked something, some days I didn't. And I just wondered, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be the same across the board all the time? And now I'm learning that it's normal to change. It's normal to evolve. If you were the same person that you were 10 years ago, you're not really growing as a person, right? And it's okay to meet yourself where you're at. And some days you're able to do something or you want to do something, and some days you're not. So having grace on myself and knowing that, like, hey, just because I'm not ready to have a conversation with this person, or I don't really even want to talk about anything religious today, doesn't mean that that is the rest of my life. It just means that's what I need right now. So yeah, taking the pressure off of myself to commit to any single approach and just respect how I'm feeling and what I can handle today. The third principle that I'm trying to live by, and I will make a note here, I am not doing a lot of talking with family members right now. I don't want to give the impression that I'm like hanging out with a bunch of religious people, and like I'm not. I am being so picky with the types of people and like how quickly I open up and, you know, who I'm opening up to. I'm being very cautious, and I think that's probably another principle I didn't write down, but is a principle I'm operating under, which is be cautious who you open up to initially. I know it might seem a little bit ironic because I make videos about this, but it's very different to open up to a camera and then have hours of editing it to make sure that, like the amount of times that I've cut something out because I'm like, ew, that was not, you did not want to sound like that when you said that, but you did. Editing and talking to a camera, it's vulnerable, definitely, but very different than sitting down and having an interaction with a person who's, you know, making faces or who is, you know, being invalidating. Like having a one-on-one conversation is different, and it's a different beast in itself. It's been a challenge so far with the people that I have had conversations with. But yeah, I definitely don't want to give the impression that I'm like, oh yeah, I've talked to every single family member about this, and because I haven't. There's some people where I'm like, not now, maybe later. And yeah, so I'm going to make that really clear. But a principle that I have been operating under in the conversations that I have been having is to focus on the relationship with the person that's sitting in front of you. And what I mean by this is tell this person how much they mean to you. Tell this person that you love them, that you respect them, that you don't think they're a bad person, that you want to be careful not to hurt their feelings, that you trust them enough to have this conversation with them, that you appreciate them listening, really building the person up and assuring them how much they mean to you, and that you want things to remain normal or peaceful, whatever it is, you know, for you, however you want the relationship to look. I find that starting with that has helped my conversations go a lot smoother because it's setting the tone. It's setting a foundation of, we're good, I love you, right? But it's also kind of a little bit of asking for that in return. Like, can we at least agree that at the end of the day, we love and care about each other? A few other ways and examples of how I've tried to do this is I've told this person, there's really just one person in particular I'm thinking of right now, that I don't want them to feel like they're walking on eggshells with me. I want them to feel like they can ask me anything, and that I will let them know what I don't feel comfortable answering, and I will take responsibility for my own emotions and communicate my needs to them. And I kind of already mentioned that earlier. I've also chosen to get vulnerable a little bit about like my concerns for the relationship, and, you know, admitting that I don't know how to do this, admitting that I'm nervous, admitting that I'm, you know, just like admitting a few of my concerns and seeing what they have to say about that, if they give any solutions or whatever. So just really focusing on the relationship rather than going straight into debating whether or not the other person is correct or has like the correct interpretation of the Bible and religion and everything. I think having a good foundation of trust is key, because for me, if I can't have that, if I can't have a good foundation of trust and mutual respect and love, then I don't want to talk about the more controversial things. Like, it's just going to be a waste of time, and it's probably probably going to be really, really frustrating and hurtful. And so I like to establish like that we love each other and we're going to respect each other and we're open-minded to each other before beginning any sort of debate or argument. Another principle that I'm trying really, really hard to live by, but this is so difficult, and I was talking to my therapist about this morning because I feel like I do such a bad job at this. It is to resist the need to be understood or validated by these people. I don't know why, but I have always had this deep, and maybe this is a very normal human thing. I don't know why I'm saying it like it's some, I don't know why I'm like this. But I feel like I have an abnormally great need to be understood, to be understood and to be validated, especially by people who are close to me. And I've really struggled to understand myself a lot, and that's been very frustrating for me. And I feel like I've also failed to get other people to understand me, which has been infuriating to me. I want people to understand my intentions. I want people to see my heart. I want people to know that I don't have any ill will in, the things that I'm doing. And when it feels like there are assumptions made about my character, or there's a suspicion about my intent, or all of a sudden I'm in defensive mode, having to prove to a person that I'm not actually trying to do harm, it gets so frustrating, and it kind of deflates me and makes me feel really demoralized. Like, why am I, like, if I can't even convince the people in my life of my goodness, then am I good? And there's a lot there, and I'm currently unpacking that. I was raised to believe that everyone was completely depraved and no one was good, everyone was bad. And so that's been really hard for me to let go of, and trying to explain myself to people who I know deep down think that I'm wicked and that everyone's wicked. I don't know if it's worth it. I just don't know. And if you're similar to me and you were raised in a family who is very, fundamentalist, believes in eternal conscious torment and believes in the depravity of man, I don't know how we are going to overcome that hump in our relationships with our former friends and family who are still in that belief system. I don't, because it is very odd now that I'm not a Christian to be around people who I know believe that I'm going to burn in hell for all of eternity, and either they will not care or they won't even know, and they're just really not worried about it. And maybe they are worried about it technically, but there's this weird but God is good and I worship that God. That is so hard to wrap my head around now as I've left, and it does make me a little bit uncomfortable being around religious people who still are operating that mindset. That one's a doozy. I really don't know. That's why I think it's really important to resist that need to be understood, because at the end of the day, why do I say that so much? I think what's really key here is that these people are not living in the same reality as you. They don't have the same beliefs, they don't have the same values, they don't have the same morals. Not that they can't understand you, but the likelihood of them even wanting to understand you is so low that putting so much effort into being understood is going to drive you crazy. So resist it. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't need to be understood. I don't need to be validated. I don't need to be told that I'm a good person. I don't need to be told that they're proud of me, because realistically, a lot of the people who I used to be tight with could never say that they're proud of me for what I'm doing. I mean, I am an enemy of their God, right? So I can't need that anymore. I have to let it go. I'm working on respecting my own opinion of myself. I know my heart. I know my intentions. I know who I am, and I shouldn't be looking to other people to tell me those things. They don't know. They're just making assumptions about me. I need to respect and trust my own opinion of myself. So the last two principles are, or tips, I guess. The first one is to take back your emotional liberty. If you were in a high control religion, fundamentalist Christianity, you probably know how it feels to be guilt tripped and emotionally manipulated into loving people that you don't like, or forgiving people that you really don't want to forgive. And I think everyone has not everyone, but I think there are slightly different definitions of love, and there are slightly different definitions of forgiveness. And for me, I felt like the biblical definitions of love and forgiveness went so far and beyond what I was able to do half the time that I felt like I was being pressured to do things that I wasn't emotionally capable of. I remember apologizing to people, when I was a kid especially, apologizing to people while I was still angry. That is something that was encouraged, to apologize, say you're sorry. And I remember one time in particular, I was like, I'm not sorry, and I'm not there yet. And thankfully, the parent who was there was able to give me space and realize, okay, I can't force her to apologize when she's not feeling sorry. But still, there felt like this pressure and a deadline, a ticking, time for me to get to a place where I was truly apologetic and felt sorry for what I had done. I can't remember what I did. Maybe I said I hate you to one of my siblings or something. Those were all emotions that were true and real and raw in those moments. I felt hate, I felt anger, I felt frustration, I felt rage, all of those things as a kid, and even now as an adult. I feel a full range of emotions. And now, instead of villainizing myself or saying, oh, you're a bad sinner going to hell because you hate your brother, you hate your sister, because I think there's a verse that talks about if you hate your brother, you hate God. I don't know. There was some verse in the Bible that was always repeated to me to make me feel like, oh, I can't have resentment in my heart towards a sibling. And I think, yes, there is good and healing in letting go of resentment and letting go of anger or hate towards a person. But I'm learning more and more about how, emotions are stored in our bodies. And if we don't process our emotions, if we don't allow ourselves to feel them, we won't heal from them. We'll just bottle them up. And so for me, allowing myself to feel whatever emotions I am feeling is really, really key in healing a lot of the scars from my past. This past month, specifically, I've allowed myself to really feel angry and indignant at things that were done to me, even at some people. That was wrong, and it felt so wrong to allow myself to feel that way, because for so long I had been told that you can't hate a person, right? But in my experience, allowing myself, maybe it was an hour or 2 hours in my day to just get it all out, right? To vent about it, to process it. The healing that came from that afterwards was so profound. It's I just needed to let myself rage and then let it go. I maybe there's research out there on this, and maybe I'm actually contradicting research. I'm concerned that maybe I am. Maybe this isn't a good thing to do. But I don't know. It's helping me right now to give myself permission to actually feel angry and to feel those emotions of I didn't deserve that. But at the same time, and this is key, I'm not wallowing in that. And I think there's a distinction there. I'm not embracing the anger and now this shall be my personality and I shall hate everyone. No, but I think I have to let myself feel what I'm feeling. Otherwise, where does that stuff go? Where does it go if I can't let it out, process it, feel it, let the wave ride its course? do his thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe I'm off on this. Maybe I'm wrong here. But for me now, I get to choose what loving and forgiving a person looks like, right? So I can love and forgive someone from afar. It does not mean that I have to like them and go hang out with them all the time or want to be in their presence. I can choose to not forgive somebody for a time and then be like, you know what, I think I am ready to forgive them now. Those things used to be held over my head, like, you have to forgive me, or you have to love you have to this. Like, maybe that doesn't hurt everybody, but that hurt me, because for me it felt invalidating to my emotions. Like, you've wronged me, I need to hurt for a little bit, and I'll forgive you when I'm ready. I really don't want to condone hating people or resenting people. I don't want to condone that as like a lifestyle choice, but I think it does have its place, and it's not immoral, you know? Like, you're not a bad person for being angry at an injustice that was done to you. The final principle or tip that I am trying to live by and really struggling, because I have a lot of trust issues and fear of being hurt, is to fill my life with new good people. You know, I'm not saying that the old people are bad people, but, you know, new people, new energy, people that are like me and can meet me where I'm at and can see me and understand me and hold space for me. I know they're out there, and I think rather than wasting time and energy and emotional labor trying to fix relationships from my past that are just broken, you know, and maybe not worth trying to fix, because fundamentally we're just different people, to go out and look for people who are more compatible with me in this stage of my life. And like, that's scary, because it's scary to put yourself out there, but I think in a way that's what I'm doing with this channel, with this content. I've connected with people who, like, you guys see me, like, it's amazing the comments that I'll get, and I'm just like, it's so comforting to know that I'm not alone in this, and that there are other people out there who understand what I'm going through and are compassionate. So yeah, I think that would be, rather than trying to hold on to relationships from my past, it's like, I'm not saying cut them off and never look back, but maybe invest more time and more energy into new growth, new people, new experiences, because like, I really don't know what's out there, right? I've been in a very insulated type of group for a long time, and I actually can't take credit for this idea, because it was planted in my head by a friend that I've been talking to who has a similar experience as me, and I was asking for her advice. It was like, what should I do? Like, these people are reaching out, and like, I don't know what I need to do with my old relationships. I'm like, ugh. She's like, maybe spend more time investing in new relationships with people who aren't like those people that are hurting you. And it's like, good point. But it's hard. It's like, there's a part of me that wants somebody comment this on my TikTok, and I was like, oh my god, you guys are geniuses. Someone said that they feel like they have a savior complex left over from their time being an evangelical Christian that keeps them laboring in those old relationships, trying to help people almost like come out of the toxicity of Christianity, which, you know, is my opinion, whatever. You know, you're trying to help them see, like, maybe you've been wrong, trying to save them from something that you feel like you were saved from. Yeah, that might be me a little bit, just trying to, I don't know. This is an area that I feel very unconfident. I don't think I'm very good at relationships. I never have been, and it's daunting and scary, and I I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but these are the principles that I am currently trying to live by, and I will let you know as things evolve. I enjoy sharing this part of me with you. Thank you for allowing me to do that. And if you have any recommendations for, a really good psychologist who wrote a book about this or something, I'm always open to recommendations about that. Know that you're not alone, and you have so much power and strength within you. You can figure it out. You can have the connections and the relationships that you want. All of this is possible and readily available to you. We just have to figure out and, I guess, put in the work. It's probably going to take a little bit of work too, and being gentle too with ourselves. Being gentle, meeting ourselves where we're at, and taking it day by day. I love you so much. Thank you for listening, and I will be talking to you next week. All right. Bye-bye.